We have our friend Mitch Sherman from The Athletic joining us now. What's up, Mitch?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
Good, Mitch. How we doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Little worn down by busy holiday season, but it's all good. I'm looking forward to some more travel. Going to Louisville this week. Going to New York next week.
So I was going to ask how you're pulling that off because my colleague Jessica Cootie's going to be in the same boat. If Nebraska wins, she'll be going from Louisville to New York City. Are you
I'll be home for a couple days in between.
You a big train guy, Mitch? Would you take a train?
Yeah, I don't know about that far. If I'm on the East Coast, like I took a train once with my wife from Washington D.C. to New York, and that was a enjoyable experience because we were only on the train for like 3 or 4 hours in the morning, and you didn't have to go through the hassle of going to a couple of busy airports. But yeah, in the East Coast situation, I'm all for it. A train from Louisville to New York, I don't think I'd be in on that. No,
That's a little aggressive.
yeah,
I've got that's just he's just looking in from Charlotte to New York, and
okay, all
price
right,
is like
maybe
coach and business, and
it's comfortable.
So it seems like that would not be a bad way to go.
I just think it takes a lot longer than driving. It depends what kind of a train you're on. If you're on like and I don't have experience on this, so I'm speaking from an uneducated standpoint. But I think if you're on like an express train that you paid more for, it might be much better than the train that stops in every little town along the way. But yeah,
looks like about 12 hours on a train from Charlotte to New York. So that's a
no,
long
thank you, no thanks.
So Mitch, I know this is weird. I feel like I'm Thomas and you're the train, but um, did you eat in just like a 4-hour train ride? Like, is train food better than plane food?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, if you're in first class it's like anything. If you're in first class on a plane, you're going to get better food than what you might get in coach on a train, I think. But it's overall better. There's just more room. You can spread out a little bit. The seats are bigger. I recall. So we went. It's for my wife's 40th birthday a few years ago, or what it was last year. It hasn't happened yet, but we went.
Mitch here for liking to be married.
Yeah, we went from DC to New York on the day of the Army Navy game. It was also the day of the Heisman ceremony. Ton going on like in the holiday season, and it was very festive on the train ride. Because there were a bunch of the midshipmen who were going up to Philly who were on the train with us. Like it kind of went through that area, that corner in New Jersey on the route into New York. So I had a good time just like walking through the train cars and like people watching. And there's a dining car on a short ride like that. I don't know that we were eating full meals, but you could stop and get snacks and things like that. Definitely better than a plane.
I do like the idea of a dining car. I feel like I could get behind that.
Well, I just think about the scene on The Equalizer, where do you remember where the guy had like taken the young lady and he was back in the caboose of the. Are you a big Equalizer guy, Mitch?
No, I don't know. I don't even know. I'm not familiar.
All right. I'm so paranoid now, Mitch. I got my hand slapped yesterday for not getting to the guts of interviews with.
Oh, no, it's better that way, isn't it?
So that's what we like to think, but.
I'm gonna be. I think it's better. As a listener, it's better. I'm gonna be doing some train. I'll just blame it on me. I'm gonna be riding trains in New York when I'm there around the Pinstripe Bowl because I just, as a matter of principle, didn't want to pay the whatever it was $800 to stay in a small, normal New York City hotel room. So I'm staying a little bit outside of the city in Westchester County, which is an easy train ride in, not the subway, like a regular train in to the Bronx, to Yankee Stadium. And I'll go into the city on a train into Penn Station or Grand Central, but it's not going to be the New York City subway. It's like a real train.
Yeah, that's cool. That's how my sister is. She's only about 4 miles from Yankee Stadium. She works for Bloomberg, and she picked to live in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
She's like in a renovated section. It's like Cabrini Green, New York, where they like renovated this housing deal, and she loves it. She's actually contemplated just getting rid of her car altogether.
Oh, I'm not renting a car. I'm flying into LaGuardia and just getting my way into the city and then up to Westchester. No car. I've driven in New York. I want no part of it. Yeah, I mean, and I don't mind. I don't mind
That's
driving in
the
big
part
cities.
that's
Like,
kind of giving me
yeah.
a little fright. Like I'm just, that's why I may not leave. Right. I may not go anywhere.
No. You don't. Come on. No,
do it.
go out and see the city. It's fantastic that time of year between Christmas and New Year's. Like I love New York, but I will not. I would only drive there if I absolutely had to. In 2008, I went to New York, same time of year. This was an article that I was writing for the World Herald about. We were trying to track down Bill Callahan. I mean, we could track him down. I was trying to talk to him and get him to do like his first interview. It would still be his first today if he did it. His first interview about his time at Nebraska. And I went and found him. I knew where he was, but I went to the Jets facility and talked to people about him. I talked to Danny Woodhead. I talked to Brett Favre. I talked to Jets O linemen about him, but I never. It was still great. It was a great experience, and I had to drive then, and I stayed in the city in Midtown, like Times Square area. And driving in New York is just like, if you're going out there as a fan, like, see, we're talking about the Pinstripe Bowl. If you're going out there as a fan and you're staying in the city, like, just don't get a car. Like, it's insanity. Take the public transportation. Much better option.
There we go. You heard it here from Mitch. Take public transportation in
Mitch
New York.
here for safety in New York.
We
Public transpo.
We love public transportation.
I've only been on a bus once, so
in your entire life?
My entire life.
Like in a city bus or in
city bus?
Okay, because I assume like school buses and stuff for games and no
I've
city
only been on
buses.
a city bus once.
Are you a big city bus guy, Mitch?
No. I'm
you
kind
want
of
to give
Damon.
that some thought? Are you big?
Kind of with Damon on that. Not really by choice. Just like, I haven't been in situations where I've needed to ride a city bus a whole lot, thankfully.
Yeah, you don't end up in. It's not a big thing in Omaha here.
Right. Mitch, let me ask you something, because we're talking about like the logistics, right, and travel, and Nebraska being in a bowl game for the first time in forever, and the noise that comes with that in the middle of December. What do you think Coach Rhule meant when he said, "Hey, the portal, coaches coming and going, meaningful discussions in December. You better get used to it." Like, for you, as you're listening to him, as he's kind of describing the controlled chaos in December, and he said, used to it. What do you think he meant?
I think it's pretty. I don't think there's a whole lot to interpret from that. He said you better get used to it because this is just the norm. This is what it's going to be every year. Like, Nebraska's got more chaos this year for a couple reasons. I think because, one, it's the first time going to a bowl in 8 years, so there's some newness to. I mean, if this was every year, I think some of the stuff that they were going through with travel plans and logistics would be, all right. We'll go back and look at our blueprint. Yeah, we'll go look at our blueprint from last year, but there is no blueprint at this point. It was 3 coaching staffs ago, so. Yeah, there's that, but then the bigger thing with him saying that it's just going to be this way every year, you're going to have change. Like, college football is a place of change and it has a transient nature to it that's beyond pro sports now, because everyone's a free agent every year, and that goes for coaches too. So if you can't handle like uncertainty and the daily like roller coaster ride of seeing a player go in the portal or come out of the portal, or coming on a visit that on a portal visit and then leave without committing, and or commit to other schools, like it's all just a big ride, and it's he said perceived chaos. So that's an interesting descriptor that he used, because I think the message that he's trying to convey is that to him, it's not chaos. Like he feels that he has it under control, but to everyone on the outside, it looks very chaotic.
Mitch, as we kind of look at some of that chaos, we saw Dante Dowdell enter the transfer portal this week, which I think surprised some people. But I'm more curious about what you think of Nebraska's running back room in general, with who they have left, who they have coming in. Do you think, where do you think the running back room is now versus, say, last spring?
Well, last spring, you still had A.J. Allen in the picture before he transferred to Miami. It's a lot different. Dowdell was coming in then. Now he's gone. Emmett Johnson, clearly has elevated his place in that room. I think a year ago they were uncertain, and Emmett was a little bit uncertain about like what his role was going to be going into the next season, and rightfully so, because Nebraska didn't have a great vision for it. They really liked Ramir Johnson, but it's the same situation that it's been for most of his career, that he just has struggled to stay healthy throughout a season. He's gone next year. Again, Dowdell's gone. Where they're at right now, moving forward, I think is in need of another piece. You have a player that you really like in Emmett Johnson coming back. I think they feel okay about some of the younger players in the room, although we just don't know at this point. I think with running backs, like if you've been in the program for 2 years and you haven't broken through and made a big contribution, especially with like Nebraska looking for and needing contributions, then like you're going to have to up your game, or there's probably not a lot of optimism about like what you're going to give this team moving forward. Like I think they said they felt great about Quentin Ives a year ago, but we still didn't see him make a big impact. So where's that at going into 2025? Mekhi Nelson, they like him. He was new to the program in the summer. I understand why he didn't make an impact this year. I think that they're holding out hope that's something that can definitely materialize. And there's the 2 freshmen coming in. Jamarian Parker is a dynamic player. Connor Booth is someone that they feel can be a piece there too. But yeah, I mean, you need some more. Like you need a proven back. You need somebody who can get tough yards. Not that Emmett can't do that, but he can't do everything. Like that Dowdell role that you saw with Holgorsen, the way that he used him in the last 3 games, I think they want to find somebody in the portal who can give them that.
Mitch, as the scholarship distribution deal, and we'll get to 105, and you and I have talked about that. I go back to the conversation we had off air in the press box. I don't know if it was high school or we're actually at a game, but you and I were talking about the delay in getting to 105 and how if they decide to do it in the next couple of weeks, it's going to have to be quick, right? Because I think at that time, I kind of had the feeling that they may prolong it a little bit since there was no clear directive at the time you and I were talking. As you look at the 105 and the scholarship distribution chart, you've covered this a long time. Has your idea of position, the number of position players you need at a specific position, changed over time as you've watched the game evolve?
Yeah, I mean, because you used to just in a different era of college football, even up until recent years,
remember how we would say, "Oh, you need 4 scholarship quarterbacks," and
right. Well, that's obviously different.
Scholarship running backs, many, and like
I was having the conversation this week about offensive linemen and how many offensive linemen you need on the 105 and how you even count those. Because is it offensive linemen who are ready to play, or are you talking about your offensive linemen on the entire 105? That's the one position group where, as true freshmen, you just don't expect. Like they have to be targeted to redshirt. I mean, if you get a special case, and Nebraska's had a few through the years, then they can play as true freshmen, but you don't want to put yourself in that position where you have true freshman offensive linemen who have to contribute. So there's 2 different numbers at that spot. Everywhere else, pretty much, defensive line maybe, but pretty much everywhere else, you have, I think, 1 number now. And that's not been the case, because in the past, most of your first year players out of high school, you would just expect that they're going to redshirt. Now with the 105 and so much, you can't be in a situation where, your roster's 105, but you've only got 62 players or 71 players who have any chance at all to get into a game. It's got to be a higher percentage than that. So the whole conversation has changed, and just the conversation obviously has changed a lot, simply because you don't have the depth. Like, where's your scout team? Do you even have a scout team? Like, what it's not, they're not going to be there in the spring. I feel very confident in saying, like, Nebraska is going to take this thing and continue to whittle away, and players will make decisions after the bowl game in January. They'll be closer to 105 than they are today. But then they're going to add, quite a few more pieces out of the portal. Like, I think in the spring, they're going to be like 10 to 15 heavy, and then decisions will be made based on the way that practices go at that time of year, and you'll see it slowly slide down to 105 by the time you get to July.
It seems like it was just a few years ago where we were having this conversation. Well, does Nebraska need 6 scholarship running backs in the room? Or, Frost with his comments, I remember he's coaching malpractice when he got there to have only 14 scholarship defensive backs. Remember, he had to go heavy and restock that. It's just, it just wasn't that long ago we were having these conversations about numbers, and it shifted dramatically since then.
Yeah, they're different, and that's where the portal comes in, because you want to always have an old team. We've looked at a lot of Nebraska rosters.
It works in college baseball. It wins in college basketball. Like, mature teams, for all the portal movement, seems like age is the constant.
Yeah, these rosters that we've looked at Nebraska over the past few years, where like half your roster has been true freshmen or redshirt freshmen, those days are gone. You cannot afford to do that in college football today, because a high percentage of those players aren't going to be ready to play at a high level. Some will, but a high percentage won't, and that's going to kill your depth. We're going to see situations. I was having this conversation also this week. Like, we're going to get to a place in this sport, and it probably won't be, knock on wood, with Nebraska or even in the Big Ten, but just be like, so how many kickers do you keep? How many punters do you keep? How many long snappers do you keep? I think it's probably 2 of each one of those, but somebody's going to run into a spot. This is not the NFL, where if you have a freak situation where both your kickers get hurt, or one of them's sick and one of them's hurt, you can go, we go to the waiver wire. Like, no, there's not, like, your 105 is your 105 seemingly in college football. When do we have a situation in the sport when a team cannot operate on special teams? Like, you get to a place where, your quarterback is punting, or you have to go for 2 every time because you don't have a snapper, or you don't have a kicker. Like, that's going to happen. And, it might have. Yeah.
Squad?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you see a taxi squad?
Yes, but we haven't gotten word. I haven't heard a coach say that. Like, I think they should do that. I think they should have a
Coach Rhule is the only person I've heard talk about that publicly, I think.
Has he said that because I haven't talked to him about that, and I'm sure that a coach in his situation would want it, because it would relieve a lot of the pressure. There are players who would willingly want to be a part of that. Rhule did say that there are players in this program who want to be Huskers, and they're not really concerned about whether they're going to get into a game. So if they were on your taxi squad, they would be great. They'd be good with that. One, because you'd have the possibility, like in an off season or even maybe in season, to move up if the situation presented itself. But 2, you would be contributing to Nebraska football. You'd be helping the program. They're largely going to be in-state kids. Like, what the walk-on program could like morph into something like that. I could see it. I think it'd be great, but I don't hear anybody at the decision-making level saying that this is a possibility.
Yeah, Mitch, I think that Coach Rhule has talked about it as a desire to have something like taxi squad. But is there? I'm just wondering, if, not knowing what the legislation is going to look like, what would be your ideal solution to that problem that you possess? Is it like, hey, we can go back to
a protected 10 maybe,
or like maybe we can go back to JV teams where they're not playing or eligible for varsity? Like, what would your ideal solution to that scenario be? Or would it just be, hey, the 105 is a dumb, arbitrary number?
Commissioner Sherman, the floor is yours.
If you have to have a 105, I think it is a dumb, arbitrary number. But if you have to have it for reasons of rev share, equality, whatever it is, they said that this was set in court, and they came to a settlement. They set a number. If there's no changing that, and it's got to be the 105, then I think, yes, something like a taxi squad, or you can call it what you want, a practice team, injured reserve. Like, I think there have to be extra pieces of extra players who are out there. Well, there don't have to be. There may not be, but NFL teams have that wiggle room, and you're turning college football into this NFL model. I recognize that the NFL teams are 53 men, and you're talking about 105 for college, but it's different because every player on a 53-man roster is ready to go right now. Like, they can play. They're seasoned. They're pros. Like, you can put them on the field. That is not the case in college with 105. So, and they have a taxi squad, they have free agency, they have a waiver wire, they can make trades. Like none of that stuff happens in college. So yeah, you need some flexibility. You've got to have like a cushion somewhere. I don't know what it looks like. Like I've looked at times, and you know, there are other teams on campus, like women's basketball, for instance, like has a males, like male student athletes, not student athletes, male students who help them practice. They're like a practice team. They're obviously they're never going to be playing. Even if it was women, they were, you know, they're the practice team. They're never going to be playing. So like there's a precedent out there somewhere in the world of college athletics where you can have students on campus who aren't a part of your team, but are a part of your practices and can receive some of the benefits that the athletic department provides. Like they can get gear, they can eat at the training table, they can, you know, use the facilities, stuff like that. Like if that can happen and already happens in some sports, why can't that happen in football?
Interesting. Mitch, and this is on the, I just remember Coach Tomlin, like, I'm a big press conference guy, walking off the podium when he was asked about the college game. And, you know, he said, oh, we'll never use never. But we're just seeing, like, different kinds of hires. We've seen Belichick, you know, obviously we're on the heels of Vrabel being floated, maybe going back to Ohio State after being a professional coach, Michael Vick at Norfolk State. Mm-hmm. The game has changed dramatically with how it's managed. How soon do you think, because they do overlap a little bit in terms of philosophy, that it wouldn't be far-fetched to see pro coaches go to college with similar infrastructures, seemingly similar infrastructures?
Yeah. You know, not long ago, there was this discussion about these established coaches, you know, whether it was Jay Wright or Nick Saban, who were driven out of the game because of the changing nature of college athletics and NIL and the portal and paying players and revenue sharing and all that came with that. And it was like, hey, coaching in college is not going to be the thing for these established coaches who are used to doing something one way. Well, as it's continued to evolve, now we're in a situation where I think the conversation has changed a little bit, and you see Bill Belichick or, you know, even Deion Sanders is part of this conversation. It didn't come from the NFL, but he coaches in a certain way and he runs his program in a certain way that's, I think, maybe more in line with what a coach from the NFL is going to want to do. Like Belichick wants to have a recruiting department, a personnel department. He wants to send coaches on the road and evaluate who aren't part of his coaching, you know, his on-field coaching staff, like 2 staffs. You know, I believe he hired Mike Lombardi, right, as a general manager. So a lot of programs have general managers. Nebraska has a general manager, and Sean Padden, who is a key piece in the program. But that's going to be the not just the norm. Like it's going to almost be mandatory to structure college programs like NFL organizations. And I do think that along with the reality that, like, if you are a head coach, you don't need to recruit. Like when players come in on campus for visits, you will sit down with them, you will talk with them, you will talk with them about salary or, you know, whatever the rev share piece of it is. You can send them to your money people in the NIL office. Like it is a lot like a free agency visit would have been in that free agency period during the NFL. So it looks I think the way it's evolving, it looks a lot more like the NFL than college football ever has, and seemingly that should entice former or even current NFL head coaches to want to come run these organizations.
That's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, we appreciate it as always. Enjoy your little traversing the country over the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Mitch.
We'll do. Thank you, guys.